From Atlanta, Georgia, welcome to Fearfully and Wonderfully Me, a podcast for women on leadership and life skills with Rhea Story. Rhea shares powerful life and leadership principles, helping you maximize your potential and become the woman God created you to be.
Hello, everyone. Welcome to today's episode on creating and implementing your personal vision. If you didn't catch last week's episode, you want to press pause right now and go back and listen to last week's episode where I kind of introduced this topic about implementing your personal vision or your personal plan for success. So make sure that you have caught that episode before you keep going any further into this one if you weren't joining us last week. So today, really, I wanted to drill down onto 4 components to creating and implementing your personal vision of success. And that's important. It's not enough to just create the vision, right? We actually want to implement it or execute it because that's what helps us actually be successful. So I wanted to dig in today to today's 4 components, or to the 4 components on creating and implementing your personal vision. And as I mentioned last week, I talk a lot about this. And in fact, today's lesson is a chapter from my book, Achieve, Maximize Your Potential with 7 Keys to Unlock Success and Significance. So I wanted to drill down today on a little bit of that execution and implementation piece, because a lot of times I know that that's what's missing. So the first component comes down to number 1: hope for the future. Hope for the future. Brene Brown stated that hope isn't an emotion; it's a way of thinking. It's an attitude of the mind that says it is possible, right? We've got to have hope. We've got to believe that there is hope that the future can be better. We get hope from the belief that we can actually achieve the future state that we desire. It is possible. Um, Ludwig von Mises said that humans require 3 things before they will act. Number 1, dissatisfaction with the present state of affairs. Number 2, a vision of a possible improved future state. And number 3, belief that we can reach that future state, right? But we've got to believe that it's possible. We have to have that hope. You've probably heard hope isn't a strategy, and it's not, clearly, but you have to have hope or you won't create the strategy for success. And sometimes if we don't have a whole lot of hope ourselves, we can borrow it from someone else, and that's okay. Sometimes that's what we need to do. Years ago, something I read challenged me to create my personal vision. And so I spent some time reflecting on what I wanted my life to look like. And if I could create the life I wanted, what would it look like? And I even wrote it down and I typed it into a note on my cell phone. And what's interesting is that I looked back on that not too long ago, and almost every single thing that I had envisioned has already become my reality. But what's also interesting is that since I've created that vision several years ago, I've grown. And as I've grown, so has my vision. So I now have a bigger vision for the future, and I'm continually working toward it. So that's the first component, though. We must have hope for the future. And then number 2, we must have a strategy for success. Right? Just creating the vision is a good and important step, but we've also got to have that strategy. Now that's important that the vision comes first. I can remember back in 2012, I had just graduated from AUM finished with my master's, and it had been a goal that I had worked toward for so long. It was just like working and going to school was just a way of life for quite a few years. And, I'd worked so hard toward that goal, and I'd sacrificed a lot. And when I reached it, I kind of just stopped and took a look around, and, I didn't know what the next step was, because I really hadn't created the vision for where I wanted to go next beyond achieving that goal. And, I remember a conversation I had with my boss at the time, And we're kind of just having a what's next conversation. And I asked her what she thought, and she suggested, she's like, law school might be a great fit for you. And that surprised me and shocked me, because I had just gone to school for more than 10 years. I'd spent more than 10 years of my life going to school, sacrificing my free time to get that degree. And I didn't know what was next in the future. I hadn't developed my vision beyond that, but I knew going back to school wasn't going to be a part of it. But if we're not sure which direction we don't want to go, but we're not sure where we do want to go, we can start to narrow our focus by taking small steps forward. So once you develop a clear vision, you will need a strategy to get there, but you have to have a vision first. All the strategic thinking in the world isn't going to help you until you have the vision, but you have to have both. And then number 3, this is really where the rubber meets the road, right? Number 3, we have to have a plan and identify our priorities. Bill Hybels said, "Your schedule should not be based on what you need to do, but rather what you want to become." Let me say that again. That's just such a profound quote. Your schedule should not be based on what you need to do, but rather what you want to become. What you want to become. This has been pretty powerful for me lately. I've just been a little more intentional on identifying my priorities daily. And what I mean by that is, once you have the vision and your big goal and your strategy, breaking that goal and that vision down into smaller goals, or milestones, if you will, then something I've found just recently is that when I have my quiet time, pretty much every morning, I like to really start my day very intentionally by sitting down with some quiet time. It doesn't have to be long. This isn't a process that takes um, long, lengthy time. But I sit down and, very intentionally think about what I'm grateful for today, because that sets my mindset into a positive mindset of being grateful. And then I identify first the number 1 most important thing for today, but I also identify number 2 and number 3. And that's important because we don't we don't really want to work on anything besides that number 1 priority until that's done. But sometimes we'll hit a roadblock, or can't work on number 1 yet. And so it always helps me to have number 2 and number 3 lined up kind of in my back pocket, so to speak, so that I can leverage my time. If I hit a roadblock on that first priority, I can go ahead and be working on something else. And if I accomplish that first one, then I've already identified number 2 and 3 priorities for the day. So I know that I can just quickly go on and knock those out while I've got the momentum. And I think that's really helped me be more effective lately, is starting my day again. This could take as little as 5 minutes, but sit down and just spend a little bit of time, thinking about my overall big goals, my strategy, and then breaking that down into what am I going to do today that will help me move forward. And back to Bill Hybels' quote, our schedule isn't just based on what we need to do, but rather what we want to become. So, making sure that we're not just prioritizing our schedule, but scheduling our priorities based on our values. If you need to sit down with your planner or your calendar in front of you every morning and figure out that 1, 2, 3 things that you can do, and then work on number 1 until it gets done. If we pack the most important priorities into our day or our week first, we'll find that the smaller stuff just somehow squeezes into the cracks. But we've created and made time and space for the priorities, and those come first. And then number 4, last but not least, execution is the fourth, and perhaps the most difficult component on creating and implementing our personal vision of success. Thomas Edison is attributed with saying, "Vision without execution is hallucination." Right? We have to have both vision and execution to be very effective and successful. Highly successful people separate themselves from everyone else by implementing and executing that strategy that creates their vision. Now, here's where it gets a little bit tricky. We have to be very careful that we're not confusing activity with accomplishment. Let me say that again. We have to be very careful that we're not confusing activity with accomplishment, right? It's very easy if we're not intentional about scheduling those priorities and planning them and sticking to them. What we'll find is we spend the whole day in busy work. We spend time and energy doing stuff and getting stuff done. And it might be great stuff, but it's not necessarily accomplishing what we need to do relative to the goal. Very important there. Don't confuse just activity with accomplishment. Now, we can't build or achieve anything significant in just a day, but maybe in, 12 weeks or a few months. If we are intentional about this every single day, forward progress compounds over time. And success is the result of taking that disciplined and consistent action forward every single day. The thing about execution is we have to have discipline, right? Because it's easier to create the vision and the strategy. It's not very difficult to set aside a few minutes in the morning and identify your top priority for the day, but it takes discipline in the whirlwind of the day to be very diligent about executing on it. I talk to a lot of people who want to write a book, and that's a great goal, but the discipline comes in actually sitting down and writing a couple of pages every day. You don't have to write all day, right? The discipline comes in giving yourself a command and then following through on that commitment you made to yourself. Now, we can leverage discipline when it's timely, value-based, and consistent, right? Timely. Tomorrow's success is based on today's discipline. Value-based. Your actions each day should be based on your vision. And then consistent. Consistent discipline over time leads to transformation. But we have to be consistent about it. Thinking about that one most important thing, but then be consistent, be diligent, be disciplined to actually work at it and attack it until it gets done. And then move on to the next thing. Your ability to implement the priorities in your daily agenda is what allows you to carry out your strategic plan and implement your personal vision for success. I'm going to share one last quote with you from Henry Ford on that. It says, "You can't build a reputation on what you are going to do." Oh, I love that. You cannot build a reputation based on what you are going to do, right? Reputation is based on what we have done. And so that's the key point there is we actually have to do it. We actually have to implement it, take action, move forward. So just get up and do it. Just don't let anything else get in your way. Once again, today I talk a lot about this in my book, Achieve, and today's lesson is a chapter from Achieve where I really talk about this in a little more detail. So if this resonated with you, or if you want to learn more, you can jump on. It's on Amazon, of course, online, and then also available on my website, riastory.com. If you would rather pick up an autographed copy, you can find that on my website. Until next time.
Start increasing your influence and maximizing your potential with Ria's audiobooks. Available at audible.com, amazon.com, and iBooks. Please visit riastory.com to learn about Ria's books, resources, speaking, and training programs. Thanks for listening.